NASCAR's back once again in the mainstream media, and NASCAR also skyrockets in ratings due to a very successful Indy doubleheader. What is up, everyone? My name is Jed from MDK. Welcome back to the episode of Inside the Lines. Yes, I realize I'm wearing the same shirt as I've worn, I think, the past 2 or 3 episodes. We are currently in the moving stages, which is why you don't see my green screen up. I want to get these videos out done and quickly so that by the time we do move, I can get everything set up and ready to go. Have a nice little new background that I wanted to introduce later on in the coming weeks, and hopefully I can show it to you guys because I think it looks pretty cool. It's gonna look good. I will say this: you're not gonna see any of this stuff. I'm gonna have an own studio, gonna make it all look nice and all that good stuff. So, but yeah, for the time being, you're gonna have to deal with me in this shirt because also all my clothes are in the other house. So this is the only shirt I got that's comfortable, at least. So enough about clothing and moving situations. Let's jump into it with the news. Now, our first story is a big one, and it revolves NASCAR being back in the mainstream media with the help of our president. Now, I get it. 1 or 2 days ago, I posted a video about why people should not care about having a Trump-sponsored scheme on a cup car for what would be the next 8 races after Indianapolis. Then President Trump tweeted this out at 8:33 a.m. this morning. He said, "Has at Bubba Wallace apologized to all those great NASCAR drivers and officials who came to his aid, stood by his side, and were willing to sacrifice everything for him, only to find out that the whole thing was just another hoax. That and flag decision has caused lowest ratings ever." Now, there are many things wrong with this, and I'm going to just be talking about the tweet. I'm not going to be talking about the man or the president. I'm just going to be talking about his tweet. There are many things wrong with this. Number one, the fact that he said hoax. If I'm correct, both NASCAR and your FBI have both said that it was not a hate crime, but it was not a hoax. It was a noose. All right? A hoax would be if there was no noose at all, but there was a noose located in Bubba's garage stall. It was only just not a hate crime because it's been there since November or October, I believe. But it was a noose. It was not a hoax. So that's number one. Number two, you saying that decision or the noose and the flag caused NASCAR ratings to go down. All I'm saying is, so you'd rather not have NASCAR ban a flag that has been known to be racist and completely offensive towards black people? Is that what you're telling me? I'm just up for debate. I'm just putting up for debate. I'm not going to dive into it. But I do bring up that topic mainly because after this, obviously, we saw Bubba Wallace once again put in the forefront of unnecessary attack. Bubba didn't say anything. I mean, I'm pretty sure most of us were sleeping by the time this announcement or the president tweeted this. But Bubba, once again, he had to make another statement, and instead of going after or trying to defend himself, all he posted on his Instagram and Twitter was a message for future generations, and even with ending it off with "when it's hate from the POTUS, love wins." And that, I think, says a lot about Bubba Wallace. I mean, when you even have the president attacking you, and you still find a way to only find the positives out of all of this and provide a positive statement from this whole situation, it truly says a lot about Bubba's character. And again, once again, I and everyone at NASCAR stands with Bubba. And that even NASCAR, they made a statement, I think 6 or 7 hours later. They said, quote, "We are proud to have Bubba Wallace in the NASCAR family, and we commend his courage and leadership. NASCAR continues to stand tall with Bubba, our competitors, and everyone who makes our sport welcoming and inclusive for all race fans." Now, there was a bit of backlash from NASCAR, mainly because it took them so long to make a statement that short. And I will admit, I was one of those people that was sort of a bit anxious, bit antsy, wondering, where's NASCAR? When the whole news situation came about, NASCAR was quick right on it to announce it. They announced it at like 11 a.m. or midnight, or 11 p.m. I should say, midnight, around that time, which is not what you expect for any sports organization to make an announcement. But they did. And for NASCAR to take this long, to me, it felt very odd. But I think David Land then said a tweet talking about how as a result of the situation at Talladega and NASCAR jumping the gun, I'm pretty sure NASCAR wanted to just wait a bit, make sure they got everything, what they need. before they made a statement and have something blow up in their face right away. Also, drivers, rarely saw any drivers speak up. Tyler Reddick, I think, was the first to speak up on this subject and then quickly deleted it. Now, I'm not sure if he deleted it or if he was forced to delete it by RCR or whoever. But it was very odd to see him delete that tweet, and it brings up a debate of, are drivers being silenced due to team owners or what's going on? Jimmie Johnson, though, he did speak up on Twitter by putting a picture of the 43 with hashtag I stand with Bubba. You also saw drivers like Matt Tiff, Brennan Brown. I believe there's one more driver that I'm forgetting. But there were some drivers, but not as many as I would hope to have seen. But honestly, I'm just sick and tired of it because, once again, more unnecessary hate towards NASCAR and towards Bubba Wallace for no reason, because this happened 2 weeks ago. We're already over it. But I will say there was a lot more support. Even though there was still a lot of hate, there was still a lot more support from last time. When the photo came out of the news, there was still a lot of backlash. And now we're seeing a lot of support for NASCAR and for Bubba, which was great to see. So not only did NASCAR and Bubba receive a lot of support from whether it's fans or people getting into NASCAR for the first time, NASCAR is also riding into Kentucky with a lot of momentum. And a tweet posted by Adam Stern, the ratings have come out from the Brickyard 400, and it is incredible. Nearly a 50% jump. Here's a look at the stats that you need to know. 46% exactly jump between this year's Brickyard 400 and last year's Brickyard 400. The race was also the most watched program on NBC since the Vikings-Niners game in January. I believe this was the NFC divisional playoffs. The race had 4.3 million viewers, which is also 32% up from last year's corresponding calendar weekend, 3.288 million at Daytona. Now, we will admit Daytona did get postponed. It was originally supposed to take place on Saturday night. It had a race on Sunday morning, afternoon. But still, what a jump for NASCAR. And I will admit, I was one of those people that felt like this would be just a flop. Yeah, the doubleheader's nice, but with the Brickyard 400 still racing on the oval, I just didn't think it had this much of an impact. But boy, was I wrong. I believe all races that entire weekend went up. INDYCAR, I believe, went up. Xfinity definitely went up. And NASCAR and the Cup Series went up tremendously. So huge props to everyone at IMS, NASCAR, and NBC, which, by the way, they put on a stellar broadcast. NBC did. I mean, the difference between Fox and NBC in terms of presentation and actually telling a story throughout the entire race is like night and day. I also loved how NBC gave that like a Sunday Night Football feel when they had like real life drivers' faces and even having them talk during the starting lineup. That was so cool to see. But yeah, huge props to everyone that contributed to that July 4th doubleheader weekend. And yeah, I who knows? If this trend continues, I feel like we might have a tradition that I don't want to say could revive the Brickyard 400 to like where it was 10, 12 years ago, but it could help bring at least a bit of hype to the Brickyard 400 with NASCAR in town, with Xfinity on the road course and Cup on the oval. Mainly with the success that Indianapolis had with this doubleheader, some speculation could say, could this lead to future doubleheaders? And while I think that might be a possibility, I personally would not want to see another doubleheader like this. I think having it at Indy, a track that really needs it with NASCAR, they need something to build hype to that event. I think that'd be the perfect place. If you add another doubleheader to, let's say, Texas or Iowa, I think it loses that prestige knowing that there are other doubleheader races out there. So I think if I were NASCAR or if I were IndyCar, I'd do just one doubleheader at Indianapolis. I think this was a perfect weekend. Xfinity and Indy on Saturday and the Cup on Sunday. It was a perfect weekend, and I think it should stay like that for at least the time being. And now on to our final story in this episode. So during Brickyard 400 weekend and a rain delay, I believe this took place during the rain delay when the race was pushed back about an hour or so, a fan responded to, I believe, who would replace Jimmie Johnson or who are the likely candidates. And Bob Pockrass said 5 drivers. He listed 5 drivers in a response of potential candidates for the 48 car. 3 likely and 2 putting their names in the ballot. Now, out of these 5 drivers, I think 2 or 3 of them no one even thought of. With Brad Keselowski more than likely going to be signing with Team Penske, so he's out of the picture. These 5 drivers look like they're going to be the talk of who will replace Jimmie Johnson in 2021. And according to Bob Pockrass, these are the drivers: Eric Jones from Joe Gibbs Racing, Tyler Reddick from Richard Childress Racing, Bubba Wallace from Richard Petty Motorsports, John Nemechek from Front Row Motorsports, and from the NASCAR Xfinity Series, Stewart-Haas driver Chase Briscoe. Now, we're going to go over every driver and see, basically just going to offer my thoughts on what each situation looks like between each driver. Let's start with Eric Jones. Now, Eric Jones, to me personally, he's always been that driver that just never fit the mold, I think, at Joe Gibbs. You saw Busch winning, Hamlin winning, Truex winning, and then you had Eric Jones just there. He's struggling to even now stay in the top 16. I believe he's either 16th or 17th in the point standings right now after Indy, after he suffered that huge crash in turn 3. He's right now below, fighting to stay in the playoffs. He only has won 2 races so far in his tenure at Joe Gibbs, one at Daytona in 2017 and the Southern 500 last year. Other than that, he hasn't really had moments where he could have had the possibility to win races. Again, to me, he just felt like that driver that just never fit the mold. Not like Daniel Suarez at Joe Gibbs, because Suarez was just bad. But Jones, again, he just never fit the mold. So I could see Eric Jones possibly, just starting with a fresh new slate, going to a new team and new manufacturer, and going to Hendrick Motorsports. However, there's also the report of, I think people at Toyota have said that they want Eric Jones back. But who knows right now? Everything is just all up for debate. Now, Tyler Reddick. Reddick is an interesting story. Rick Hendrick did say that he wanted a veteran driver in the 48 car. He doesn't want a rookie. Well, Tyler Reddick is a rookie. When 2021 comes up, he'll be in only his 2nd year of Cup competition. But already, halfway through the season, he's already outperformed everybody's expectations with Richard Childress Racing. He has put that car in the top 10, in the top 5, won a stage at Talladega. He has really shined so far in his rookie season, is in the hunt for the playoffs, which is something that Richard Childress Racing hasn't sniffed, I think, since Austin Dillon won those 2 races back in 2017. I believe that was the last time we saw Richard Childress Racing in the playoffs. I could be wrong about that, but I believe that was the last time. So seeing a driver like Reddick perform that well in equipment that's not up to par, at least with Hendrick have definitely stepped up this year. Reddick could possibly, I could see him going to Hendrick, because also he's got experience with a Hendrick-like team. Remember, in the Xfinity Series, he raced for Junior Motorsports for that 1 year when he won the championship. Now, I believe he had to go to Richard Childress due to not being enough sponsorship at JRM, which I could see because there were even a couple races in his Xfinity Series season with Junior Motorsports where he ran without a sponsor. So Reddick having Hendrick-like experience, again, JRM, it's not Hendrick, but it's basically connections. We've seen drivers from Junior Motorsports go directly to the Cup Series with Hendrick, like William Byron and Chase Elliott are the first 2 that come to mind. So out of those 2 drivers, Eric Jones and Tyler Reddick, I leaning more towards Reddick in terms of previous experience, but again, it's very hard to tell. Now, the 3rd driver on the list is Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace, he's in a contract year. He has performed a lot better with him and Richard Petty Motorsports. They have really performed better with the 9th place finish at the Brickyard yesterday. But however, I just cannot see Bubba going to Hendrick. And the reason why is mainly because we saw how long it took for Bubba and Richard to get accustomed to each other in terms of equipment in their team. And it looks like just now they're starting to form together, gel together, and actually put up good, consistent numbers. Remember, Bubba has his crew chief back, Jerry Baxter, who worked with Bubba during the NASCAR Truck Series when they were both at Kyle Busch Motorsports. And you saw with them 2 together how good they're starting to form now. If Bubba then leaves to go to Hendrick, which he will more than likely, if he leaves, he will be paired up with Cliff Daniels. I don't see Bubba wanting to go through that whole process all over again with the new crew chief, and it's going to take him even some more time, another 2-3 years. Let's see, just throwing out a guess out there, for him to get back to form. I think he's in a comfortable state with Richard Petty, Jerry Baxter, and everyone in his entire crew. I think they're in a good state of confidence in terms of speed. I just don't see Bubba wanting to just leave all that just and start all over again at Hendrick. Now let's talk about the other two, John Nemechek and Chase Briscoe, both Ford drivers. Now John Hunter Nemechek is a very interesting option. He's a rookie. He's got experience in a Chevrolet in terms of Xfinity and trucks. And he's at a team like Front Row Motorsports, which while they've had flashes of speed, they're not going to be anywhere near top 10 weekly, I feel like, for quite some time. So John Nemechek, being how young he is, very early in his career, he might want to get a jump start in some good equipment and show his speed early on. Maybe him jumping ship from 1 year ago to be near the midfielder team with Front Row to now 1 year later being part of one of the top teams at Hendrick. Again, that's a possibility I could see. We have seen drivers that spend 1 or 2 years in the mid tier and then jump to the top tier to one of the big teams. We've seen that in the past before. And John Nemechek could be another example. He's a really good driver. He has outperformed tremendously in his equipment. So does has Michael McDowell. Don't want to sort of focus in on just Nemechek. McDowell has also showed speed. But I feel like with Nemechek, how young he is, I feel like he'd be a good fit for the 48 car at Hendrick next year. And then finally, Chase Briscoe. Briscoe, very unlikely, mainly because of his relationship at Stewart-Haas Racing. Right now he's in the Xfinity Series. I really see Briscoe in the Xfinity Series at least 1 more year before he even thinks about maybe jumping to Cup. And even if he jumps to Cup, maybe I could see him replacing Clint Boyer. We also have heard Kyle Larson maybe being a candidate to replace Clint Boyer. Briscoe is also going to be in that category. Who knows, maybe with Kevin Harvick after, I forgot how long his contract is, but maybe when that's up, maybe Harvick will then leave. Briscoe will take the Ford car, who knows, but I just don't see Briscoe leaving Stewart-Haas and going to Hendrick. I think he's going to stay in that Mustang oval, and I think he's going to stay connected with Stewart-Haas in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, I think in terms of most likely to least likely, I think maybe most likely, it's a very tough choice, but I put Nemechek in the most likely category, or Reddick. Nemechek or Reddick. Reddick maybe a bit higher due to him having some form of Hendrick-like experience. And for the least likely is Chase Briscoe. But that is it for us in this episode of Inside Lines. But now it's up to you guys. What are your guys' thoughts on any of those 5 drivers as candidates? Do you see any of them being maybe having the opportunity to replace Jimmie Johnson? Or do you think it's a completely different driver? Do you think it's Keselowski possibly? Who do you think could replace Jimmie in the 48 car? And also, what are your thoughts on NASCAR exploding in ratings with that doubleheader? Do you think it could lead to future doubleheader races? Again, tell me in the comment section down below. But until next time, my name is Jack Cross from MDK, and I'll see you guys next time.